Hi there. This is Linda Tripp, 4-H issue leader for Cornell Cooperative Extension in Columbia and Greene counties. And we are here for session 3 of A Trip to the Kitchen DIY Goodies. Today, we're going to make a fun little thing that's called a Parmesan twist using an ingredient you may not have eaten before or even worked with before. So first of all, I want you to remember the kinds of things that we need to prepare. First of all, this is the recipe book that all 4 of our recipes are coming from, okay? It's called The Complete DIY Cookbook for Young Chefs, and this is from America's Test Kitchen. It has a lot of great recipes in, and we're making 4 of them. Okay, now remember that you always want to have your recipe ready, and you want to make sure that your surface is clean, and make sure it's really clean today because we're going to be rolling our dough out right on the counter. Make sure your hands are clean because you're going to be touching the dough with them, that your hair is tied back if it's long and you have an apron on, okay? If you have an apron, it's great because then you don't mess up your clothes and mom's gonna be happy. So hopefully you have all of those things ready. Now the ingredients that we're using today, and actually I have to get one out of the refrigerator yet. Okay, so we're going to be using a little bit of vegetable oil spray. We're going to be using a little bit of all-purpose flour. We also are going to be using some butter, only 2 tablespoons, a little bit of salt, 1/4 teaspoon, and also some Parmesan cheese. And you want the grated kind. So hopefully that's what you have. And finally, you're going to be using a sheet of puff pastry sheets. And that's what the box looks like. 2 sheets come in a box. We're going to be using 1 for our recipe. And of course, you can use the other sheet to make another set of these puff Parmesan twists as well. Okay, and then for our equipment, I found that having a rimmed baking sheet works well. And when I did my test batch, this was totally filled to the brim. So if you have a smaller pan, you might need 2 to get all your Parmesan twists on it. You need a sheet of parchment paper. And if you don't have parchment paper, probably a piece of foil will work as well. Okay, and from there, all you need is a rolling pin, definitely, a ruler, because we're going to be marking 3/4 inch, so a ruler will be really useful. A pastry brush, grab mine out of the drawer. It's my pastry brush. A chef's knife that we've used before, but also I found that a pizza cutter works really well at cutting this dough, and it may be easier. So if you have a pizza cutter, see if you can find one of those in your kitchen. Then of course you're going to need oven mitts and a cooling rack for when your Parmesan twists come out of the oven. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, when you're using the oven, when you're baking, remember, you want to start your oven first. And before you even turn the oven on, you want to move your rack. And this time, we want to move our oven rack to the upper middle position. So you find the middle of the oven, and then you put it in the next higher position, because otherwise they will brown too much on the bottom before the top gets brown. So you move your oven rack, and then you turn on the oven to 400 degrees, okay? Next, even though we have parchment paper in our pan, we're going to doubly make sure that these Parmesan twists don't stick. And we're going to spray a little bit, just a light amount of cooking spray on that, right on top of the parchment paper. And remember my hint, for those of you who've been with me before, whenever you spray with cooking spray, do it in your sink so you don't overspray and hit everything else around you. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my sink and put a little spray on here. Okay, set that aside. So, got your spraying done. Now, we're going to put just a little bit, just a light amount of flour on our baking surface, or on our baking surface where we're going to be rolling out. And you can just spread that around. You really don't need much. Okay. There we go. And next, we're going to take out our dough of the package and carefully unroll it here on our surface. And I like this Pepperidge Farm kind. I don't know about others, but they really work hard on making sure the dough doesn't stick to itself, because once it sticks to itself, you're not going to be getting it apart, I don't think. Yeah, so there we go. Next, we are looking at number 2. So we have the flour sprinkled, we have our puff pastry on the counter. We're going to use our rolling pin. You might want to just take a little bit of this flour and just rub it around your rolling pin, just to make sure that nothing sticks to it. And you're just going to roll it out a little bit bigger. As I was looking here, because right now it is 9.5 inches, and you just want to make it 10.5 inches square. Okay. Don't have to roll it much. My suggestion is roll it tall first in one direction to 10.5 inches. Okay. And then turn it around and then roll it in the other direction to 10.5 inches. It doesn't take much to do it. You really don't want it longer than 10.5 inches, otherwise it really won't fit very well on your pan. Okay, so that's all. It's rolled out. Now, now we need to have our melted butter, and I didn't melt mine yet. You need 2 tablespoons, and you pretty much use it all. So you do really want the 2 tablespoons. And if you look at the side of the stick of butter, there's markings for tablespoons. And you can find 1, 2, and cut that and put it into your bowl. And if you have a microwave oven, it's easy to melt. It only takes about 20 seconds. My suggestion is that you put a cover on it in the microwave, because sometimes it spits, and to tell you, it's not my favorite thing to clean microwave oven. So let's put this in here for a few seconds. I usually like to watch it because you can see through the window if it's as it's melting. And as soon as it's melted, you want to take it out because you don't want it bubbling hot. It's like almost exactly 20 seconds for me. There we go. There's a little bit not melted like I have here. Just swirl it around, and that will take care of it. Excellent. So we have our butter, we have our pastry that is rolled out to 10.5 inches square. Let's wait for next time. Now we are at number 3, and that says to use your pastry brush. use your pastry brush to evenly paint the puff pastry with melted butter. And you're going to use most of this butter, which is good. You want to get every little piece of it all the way up to the edges, because that is what will keep the Parmesan cheese sticking to the pastry, okay? And because your pastry is cold, you just took it out of the refrigerator, then this butter will solidify, and that way it will hold the Parmesan cheese for you as you're handling it. So just brush this on. A few minutes to get it all, because you want to get all the way up to the edge, because otherwise you don't want to be the person getting an edge piece that doesn't have Parmesan cheese on it. You just take your time and paint it. It's always good to have the bowl with the liquid that you're taking your dipping your brush into right close, so that you're not dripping all over your counter. I kind of like to go in a kind of an order so that I know I haven't missed any spots. And you can see it's starting to solidify as you're painting that on there. And how can you tell it's solidifying? Well, because when you put your brush back through, you can see the stroke marks from your brush in staying in the butter. Now, puff pastry is not something I've ever made from scratch. It is time consuming. It can be done, but I think you're getting your money's worth when you buy it pre-made in the frozen food department. Okay, so that takes care of that. It looks pretty good. So that's the first part of number 3. Once you have all the butter on, then you're going to take your 4th teaspoon and your salt, and you don't want it heaping, just even. And you're going to have it pretty high up as you're sprinkling, so that it spreads out all over the pastry dough. Can't really see where it's going, so you just need to move your measuring spoon all around. You probably could also take a salt shaker and just lightly salt the whole thing. That would probably take care of it as well, and might be a little bit easier for some of you than trying to sprinkle with a little measuring spoon. The next part is we're going to take our 1/2 cup measuring cup and our Parmesan cheese. You get an even measuring cup of Parmesan cheese, and we're going to sprinkle this over the whole thing. And don't worry if it goes off the edges, that's fine. At the very end, we're going to use up all of that Parmesan cheese that has been left behind on your counter. So it's not a problem. So, and you want again to cover all of the butter. And we're going to be spreading it a little bit with our hands in a few minutes, and with our fingers. So if you get a big blob on there, that's okay. We will move it around lightly with our hands. You can see why they call these Parmesan twists. Okay, now I have some big spots on here, so just using my hands to lightly spread it around so it covers all spots of the butter. And remember, get all the way to the edges, because you do not want to be the person that gets an edge piece with no butter and no Parmesan cheese. That just wouldn't be fun. Besides the fact you've got plenty of both. And once you think you have it spread around really good, then I want you to go back and pat it so it sticks really well to the butter. Don't need to pound it. Don't pound it, just lightly pat it. So it looks like it's flattened. Okay. Yeah, that's looking good. Now you're going to use your knife, either your large knife or your butter knife, whichever kind of knife, and your ruler. And you're going to want to mark along the edge 3/4 inch. Okay, so you really have to look at it. For me, anyway, I do, to see where 3/4 inch is. It's pretty, I'm gonna use my sharp knife. It's pretty narrow, but they puff up a lot. This takes a little bit of time. 3 quarters. Six 3/4, 7 1/2, 9, and 9 3/4. Now you want to do the same on the other side, so they have a place to aim at, to make sure these are all about the same width, so they all bake about the same. You know, this is a part of this that takes the longest. Isn't that the craziest thing? But this is how you come out with something that looks really nice. And everybody will be excited to eat your Parmesan twists. Okay, so I have marks on both sides. From there, I found that my pizza cutter works best, and I can just aim up to the other end and cut it. Don't move them, just need to cut them. And you're really aiming to get them all about the same width, so that they all turn out nice and crunchy, and none of them get overbaked and none of them get underbaked. This could be a little tricky. You just do the best you can. And this is pretty easy to cut. You don't need to press down very hard at all to do this. Okay, so we've got our little strips. I'm going to show you one. This is one of my little strips. Okay. Now I'm going to bring over my pan, because I'm going to start putting these on. I'm going to be laying them out across this way, very close together, so we can get them all on. And what we want to do now is twist them. And what I do is I kind of start in the middle and turn one hand, turning one way and the other, and move to the outside till it's all twisted. Okay. And then you put it on the end of your pan and do another one. Okay. So start in the middle and then just work your hands back to get the rest. It doesn't have to be beautiful because they're going to puff up and they're just going to have their own look to them. But it's nice to have them twisted. So because we don't make the dough, this is not a difficult recipe at all. But you know what? People are going to be so impressed. They're going to say, what? You made this yourself? So, and if you buy anything like this in the grocery store, it would definitely, these are not cheap to purchase. You know, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You're going to get 14 out of this one package of dough. And it's okay that some of the Parmesan cheese is coming off because we're going to put that all back on before we put them in the oven. So it's not going to go to waste. And that's my pan so far. One looks kind of funny. You can improve on the next one. We've got 14 to do. They'll all be fine. Make sure your pan doesn't fall off the counter. That would be a disappointment. Okay, I have 3 left after this. Now, if you're finding that you're going to have extra room on your pan, and just go back and spread them out a little bit because they do puff up. And so if there's room to let them puff, then let's let them do that. That's kind of skinny, but that's okay. Okay, let's see. Spread these out just a tad. The nice thing about this dough is it doesn't stick to you or to anything. But you spray the pan because the Parmesan cheese will stick. Okay, now once you have that done and everything's on your pan, it says that number 5 that we should sprinkle the twist evenly with remaining 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. Well, we have all of this Parmesan cheese still on our counter. So that's definitely about 1/4 cup, and we don't want that to go to waste. So just pick it up and just sprinkle it along. And it's, it's going to go onto the paper. That's okay. But just put a little bit more on every Parmesan twist. All of this for sure. Sprinkle the rest in here. We're going to call them Parmesan twists. We want them to taste like Parmesan, right? Okay, now, so we have our pan ready to go. And our next step, that takes care of step number 5, except for placing the baking sheet in the oven. And it says after you place it in, you want to bake until they are puffed and deep golden, 16 to 20 minutes. Remember that you want to set the oven for the lowest amount of time because all of our ovens are different. And so we don't want to burn them because once we burn them, we can't take that back. So set your oven for 16 minutes, okay? And then if they're not golden brown yet, you can bake them for another minute or two. Let's continue on with the recipe. It says after they're deep golden brown, you remove the baking sheet from the oven, put it on a cooling rack and let them cool on the baking sheet for 10 minutes. And then you might want to use a spatula to help get them off of your baking sheet. And they can be stored in an airtight container for a few days. Now let me show you my Parmesan twists that I just made. There's a pan of Parmesan twists, okay? And let me pick one out for you. And this is what it looks like. So pretty tasty looking. And you can see it just breaks nice and easily. Those are gonna be really tasty with maybe chili or soup or as a snack, any of those things, but they pop up and they are beautiful. So I hope you had fun baking with me today. I'm going to put my pan in the oven as soon as I'm done with you, and want to remind you that we have one session left, and that is vanilla no churn ice cream with hot fudge sauce. So this one will definitely take a little bit longer than tonight since we're making 2 items. And the thing I want you to know about is that you really do want to use a blender, not a mixer, but a blender for this, because the blender will help the ice cream mix to be a little bit more airy and fluffy since we're not churning it in an ice cream maker. Okay, and the other thing, it says that you want to have a metal loaf pan. You definitely do not want to use glass or ceramic. You want metal, or a foil loaf pan will work as well because they have a little bit of give to them. And so if you need a little bit of help to get that ice cream out, you'll be able to do that with the metal pan. Okay, so I look forward to seeing you next time, and enjoy your Parmesan twists. No, you still have another section of dough left. You can make another 14 of them. See you next time.